Pay attention to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies because we are at a point where they've just bounced back in an extraordinary way. They've just established a confirmed bottom. I'm going to explain the reasons why I believe this. Just yesterday and the day before, we were talking about the fact that we're at the support level. Everyone was afraid. Everyone was expecting Bitcoin to reach $100,000. So, what happened? Well, Uncle Powell came and blew up the markets. We're going to talk mainly about the liquidations that happened today, all the people who have been suffering. We already know that we've had those long positions open for quite some time. Let's start by talking about the news. So let's begin with crypto news. And what do we have today? Well, as I said, Mr. Powell showed up to comment on some very important things. For example, the tightening of immigration has caused a sharp slowdown in labor force growth. Since Trump has kicked out many immigrants from the country, the labor market is feeling the effects a bit. The labor market is already in a curious kind of equilibrium, but it faces downside risks. That means they're afraid that basically the labor market could go to hell. The shift in the balance of risks could justify an adjustment to policy. This is the key point of the day. Basically, he's telling you that by September, they're going to lower interest rates. And since they're going to lower interest rates, basically things are happening like more liquidity is entering the crypto ecosystem, bonds are going down, and a lot of other things are happening that we're going to talk about right now, right? So, it also says that the effects of tariffs are clearly visible and could accumulate in the coming months. So, be careful with that. So, as you can see, interest rates will go down. Obviously, this is positive in the short term, but negative in the long term. And I'll explain why, but not today. I'll explain it on the new channel, which is the other thing I wanted to mention. As you already know, the channel that used to be called Brujo Inversor has been renamed to Bruj Finance and will launch on September 2nd. On this channel, I'm going to explain a lot of things to you, such as why yesterday I bought $10,000 worth of US Treasury bonds, anticipating the change that was going to happen today, and these interest rate cuts, and why these bonds are going to give me a return of more than 15% per year. So I'm just putting that out there for you. Everyone who wants to learn about investing in traditional investments, I recommend you follow this channel. I'll put it in the description, the first link, so you can follow it, alright? So let's move on from this and go straight to the economic calendar. And today, as we've said, there have been some interesting data releases. Well, more than just interesting data, which there have also been statements from Powell and from Trump. Trump's statements are happening as I'm recording this video, but it's true that Powell's statements have been very clear. He says he's concerned that the labor market is weakening and that it's worth starting to lower interest rates, which basically means Powell is afraid of a recession. And let me tell you something very interesting, okay? When there's a recession, the markets drop, the markets get knocked down. They can basically fall 30, 40, even 50% easily. That's traditional markets. Just imagine what could happen to crypto, right? Remember, Bitcoin has never gone through a recession yet. So that could have a very negative impact if a recession does happen. And here's the negative part. When the Federal Reserve lowers interest rates, okay? When they start lowering interest rates out of fear of a recession, it means the recession is imminent, all right? I'm not saying it's going to happen now or next month, but starting from the end of this year or the beginning of next year, the recession could very well arrive, okay? It could bring down both traditional markets and cryptocurrencies. And that's exactly why I'm buying treasury bonds, which I'll talk about in much more detail in a video on my other traditional investment channel, because basically, if interest rates go down, the new bonds that are issued will pay less. So people will be willing to pay much more for my bond that I bought at 4.5% annual interest. And there are just several things to discuss there. But anyway, just so you know, right? Obviously, that's positive for the market right now, but, well, interest rates are lowered for a reason, aren't they? Okay, so when that something they're seeing actually happens, it's going to be quite negative, both for Bitcoin and for cryptocurrencies. Some of you are going to say to me, but Crypto Bruj, Bitcoin is a safe haven asset. That's how I and a handful of geeks see it. But real people, actual people, okay? The masses don't see Bitcoin as a safe haven asset. Instead, it behaves like a risk asset, like stocks, like the Nasdaq, okay? At least that's how people see Bitcoin right now. Bitcoin is not gold, at least not from what we're seeing right now. So it's likely to suffer a lot during these times. That's why I'm also telling you that in 2026, the bear market will probably arrive. But for now, we can still enjoy a few good months. So let's go straight to trading different to see what's happening with the liquidations. And look at this, right? In the end, what we've been seeing with Bitcoin is that every time we drop, we liquidate more areas, new liquidation zones are formed, and more and more and more. And if you look closely, in fact, there are still quite a few liquidation zones left around here, and you might say, but CRYPTOHEX, does that mean that Bitcoin is going to drop to the 114,000 area to liquidate all of this zone here? Well, keep in mind that we're already very far from this liquidation zone, okay? And this zone is important, but it's not that important. I want us to see that if we pull the chart back a bit, the all-time high zone, the $131,000 area, is much more important than this one. And not only that, but also keep in mind what I mentioned in the last video, even more important than the all-time high zone is the $106,000 area, okay? So, are the $106,000 still on the table? Yes, they're still on the table, but it's becoming less and less likely to happen. And in fact, knowing that we formed a double bottom around the 112,000 area, which was a major support that everyone was shorting, and those shorts have just been liquidated, well, the 106,000 level for now, it's not completely ruled out, but it's quite unlikely that we're going to reach that area. At the very least, it seems like we're first going to head towards the 119,000 area. If we break through 119,000, 120,000 to the upside, we're on the way to all-time highs. Again, I repeat, this can disappear over time. Bitcoin doesn't need to go down to this area for these liquidations to disappear. Remember this, okay? Liquidations are just another indicator. If everything else is bullish but there are liquidations below, it doesn't necessarily have to go after those liquidations. It's simply, I repeat, just another indicator, okay? So as you can clearly see, well, clearly, we've liquidated the vast majority. The 106,000 area is still left, but as I said, it's still too far away to even talk about it. So let's go straight to the Bitcoin analysis to see what's happening. And take a look at Bitcoin on the chart. Let's go to the daily chart first, and I want you to see it, okay? Clearly, very clearly, Bitcoin had support in this area here. The area of the all-time highs from May, the area of the bottom from August 2nd, and the area of the bottom from August 21st and 22nd. But we actually talked about this the day before, in the previous video. We discussed, are we above the support? Yes. Is the MACD trending upwards on the daily chart? Yes. And on the 4-hour chart? Yes. And on the 1-hour chart? Yes. Everything was pointing upwards, and we are above the support. So why was there so much fear in the market? I'd like to know, honestly. So fear should only set in if, once again, we lose the $112,000 or $111,000 zone. If we lose $111,000, we'll definitely go down to $106,000 to liquidate. But does it look right now like we're about to break below $112,000? No, we're not, okay? And in fact, on the daily chart, I repeat, the MACD is showing a bullish divergence. The MACD is at the 0 point. The MACD is ready for the next upward move. The last time we had a bullish MACD crossover, remember, was on June 26th, okay? And then we saw an increase of about 14 or 15%, right? A 14 or 15% rise from the current price would mean going up to around 130, what? About $135,000 more or less, okay? So just to give you an idea of the kind of move we're expecting. 4-hour chart, what does it look like? Well, look, clearly, Bitcoin had a downward trend line running through all these areas here. And this downward trend line has been completely wiped out, okay? The MACD has crossed upwards. We had a bullish divergence on both the MACD and the RSI. Both on the MACD and the RSI, around the $112,000 area, who hasn't bought here? I'm asking, who hasn't bought here? We, for example, in the Trading Hub had a Bitcoin signal that we've already closed, okay? We've already closed the signal, buying at $112,190, okay? $112,190. Look at the point where we got in. $112,190, right here. This is exactly where we got in, okay? And why did we get in? Because there was divergence, we were at the support, and we were clearly pointing all this out, okay? It was clearly visible. So, well, you can see how Bitcoin has bounced from this area just as it was supposed to. Where is Bitcoin right now? Well, it's at a major resistance. Why is it at a major resistance? Because not only has Bitcoin stalled a lot in this area, okay? It stalled in this area here on August 7th, it stalled on August 9th, it stalled on August 15th, it stalled on August 18th, and it stalled again today. It's not just this support resistance area, but also this 200 period moving average. I'm going to remove the line so you can see it. This 200 period moving average, we need to break above it. We need to close 4-hour candles above $117,200 to confirm the breakout. If we break it, then the next move would be upward toward the 119,000 area, the liquidation zone we've seen above. So do I think we're going to 119,000? Yes. This is the moment. Be careful here, okay? Because what happens here is that a lot of people make the big mistake of starting to look for shorts when things are like this. It's very strong. Look at the 4-hour chart. What a huge candle, okay? Look at the 1-hour chart. What a huge candle it is. And on the 1-hour chart, we've broken through the 200 period moving average. This is not the time to be looking for shorts. I repeat, you're going against the trend movement. You're going against the strongest move. The important and interesting thing here is to wait, because just as we're at a resistance on the 4-hour chart, Bitcoin could easily, on the 4-hour chart, drop to $114,500. This area right here is the perfect zone to, if you're not already in a long, maybe look for a new long position aiming for 119. So rather than looking for a short down to 114, the smartest move is to wait for a drop to 114 and then open a long, okay? Don't trade against the trend. And this applies to Bitcoin, Ether, and all the coins. I'll repeat, today Bitcoin is only up 3.6%, but we've got Ether up 13, Lyco up another 10, ENA up 15. In other words, there's no coin that's up less than 8 or 9%, okay? So, damn, you can't go against such a strong move. Look at how dominance is dropping, we'll see it now. 1 hour chart, as I said, we've broken through the 200 moving average. Just as we expect to happen on the 4 hour chart, it's already happened on the 1 hour chart. At the moment, the 117 zone is still a resistance, but it looks like we're going to break through it. We're overbought, okay? We're overbought. That's why it's not the time to go long, okay? Look, what I'm telling you is it's likely that this will keep going up, but even so, technically, going long here is wrong because there's a big risk that it could drop like this before going up. And if it does drop like this before going up, you'll be sitting on a trade that's down 30%. You don't want that. In any case, it's, okay, I missed out, I accept it, fine, I'll wait for a pullback. When there's a pullback, bam. But don't let the same thing happen to you because, of course, you'll say, I'll wait for a pullback to go long. Damn, it dropped to the support and you didn't go long? Seriously. That's the $1 million question, isn't it? Obviously now, well, you'll have to settle for a small drop like this to go long, but will you have the attitude to go long when there are pullbacks? Or when we get to the 112,000 zone, are you going to say, no, we're going to 100,000, better not go long? That's kind of the issue. And we've talked about this a lot on the channel, but anyway. So it's probably going to keep going up. Very likely it will keep rising. And in fact, I'll tell you in advance, I have some open trades right now, okay? Look, one in Bitcoin where I've made $3,500 and I still have another 1,000 and something left to take. Look at how much you can make in a day just by putting in a small long, which in this case was for one Bitcoin, okay? Including leverage. So as you can see, you have to wait for the corrections, okay? Let's take a look at the altcoins to see what's happening today. Look at how the altcoins are doing. Check out Ether, okay? For example, Ether. Ether had formed this downward channel, and in fact, this downward channel is now practically at all-time highs. In 4 candles, in 2 4-hour candles, notice that as soon as we broke this channel, as soon as we broke the resistance bit, Ether has It has exploded, it's exploded, and is practically at yearly highs and right at the doorstep of its all-time high, which is at $4,800 and something dollars. Ether will most likely go straight to the $5,000 zone. The $5,000 is the target for this channel we had here. We said that this channel could take a week, 2 weeks to reach. Well, it's happening in just over 24 hours. What we're seeing is just crazy. So, same thing. Are you going to go long now? Are you going to go long now already overbought on the 4-hour chart when you've already completed about 70% of the pattern? Why didn't you go long at the support? Why didn't you go long in these areas around here? That's the question, right? So if it drops, if we're lucky enough that, for example, Ether drops to 4,450, maybe it's worth going long. But right now here, wow, it's very risky because basically Ether could easily drop 4, 5, or even 6%, okay? And the 1-hour chart, it's the same story. Look how overbought we are. You just can't go long on anything like this. At this point, you should already be in a long from earlier, okay? For example, going long on some coins. So look, $320 in the trade, and I've already made $1,400. XRP, $280 in the trade, and I've already made $900. And these have been open in the last 24 hours, okay? Render, $310 in the trade, and I've already made $600, okay? You don't need a lot of capital to make a lot. What you need are good entries and not to get in when it's overbought. The moment when you buy or when you're thinking about buying is the moment when I sell you my cryptocurrencies, which I bought 24 hours ago. We bought these cryptocurrencies 10-15% cheaper. Today, you're going to buy them from me 15-20% more expensive, right? In this case. So just something for you to think about, right? Remember, trades are made at the supports, not at the resistance, please, okay? Let's not make that mistake because it's a disaster, and I made that mistake myself in the first cycle. Look, for example, at Link as well. Look at Link's price jumps. I mean, in just 4 or 5 hours, it went up 16%. It's crazy. Link at yearly highs, once again. It's going to keep rising. It's heading towards $29, $30, okay? All this area here, look, this zone around $30, $31, we're going straight there. ENA, how is it doing? Recovering quite a bit. Look at that too. Breaking above the 200 moving average. Radium up 10%, breaking above the 200 moving average. Radium is also heading toward 3.6 and then 3.78. You see it, right? All the coins are the same, exploding, 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 breaking moving averages, going up, going up. These have hit bottom. BGB as well. Look at Bitcoin dominance. Look at the collapse of Bitcoin dominance. We've said it several times already. This drop is going to continue. The first target for the drop in dominance is to fall to 57%. We're already at 58.4. When we were in the 60 zone, we said it had to be 56, 56.9. But this is just the daily chart. Look at the weekly chart. This is a wedge on the weekly chart. And Bitcoin dominance is going to keep falling at least to the 50 zone and very likely to the 44 zone. All of this, the drop in dominance, is going to be the alt season. This is the alt season. This is alt season. But this alt season still has about 3 times more to go than what we've seen so far. The rise we've seen in altcoins so far, there's still 3 times more to come, okay? Everything that altcoins have gone up in the last 2 months, there's still 3 times more to go. So, just so you understand, these are still good prices, but obviously if you're here for the short term, you can't start buying when a coin has just gone up 16 or 20% in a few hours. Yes, it's going to keep going up, but wait for a little dip. Because just like if you pay attention, okay? Because this has happened. Look here. When, for example, Cardano, right? It was around the 1.01 zone. People wanted to buy here. We said, wait for some pullbacks. You had a 20% drop. It touched exactly the 200 moving average on the 4-hour chart. Well, this is going to happen again at some point, okay? This is going to go up. It will go up, but there will come a point where it will have a correction of 10%, 15%. Those are the buying points, not the current point, which is overbought. And when you're already, in that situation, okay? So simply, this is the time to take profits from longs, not to enter a long, okay? Because the only ones going long here are the wild ones who really want to take a big risk. But right now, I'm not going to take that risk. Right now, I'm sticking with my trades. I'm going to hold them. As you saw with Bitcoin, I closed part of the position, but I'm going to hold the rest. Because for me, this is heading toward all-time highs, okay? So, well, let's move on to a quick recap of today's video. As we've said, I think it's been pretty clear. You buy in the support zone, and you sell in the resistance zones, obviously. The other day, we were already talking about how there really wasn't any reason to break through the $112,000. We're well positioned. People who are well positioned just need to cover themselves, set their stop loss at the entry point, protect themselves, and that's it. Right now, the fundamentals are supporting us and will continue to do so for a few more months. But remember, we don't have much bull run left. We still have the strongest part of the run ahead, but not much time left. Most likely, the party will be over by October or November, and from then on, I'll start exiting the market and waiting for the possible recession in the United States, which is why they're lowering interest rates. And from there, we'll take advantage of opportunities to go short, invest in other types of assets that are more relevant during times of recession, and will be ready and prepared to re-enter when the recession and the bear market are over. So, well, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you tomorrow with more. See you soon, everyone. Goodbye, goodbye.